Okay, I am here in backyard, Jacksonville, Florida, planting zone 9. And I'm doing this video because I want to show everyone what citrus greening looks like. And this is a lime tree. I've lost my lemon tree, and I also have a orange tree that's infected with citrus greening. So I didn't see a lot of videos online that kind of showed what it looked like and what your tree ended up turning into with this bacteria. But I'm gonna run this video now so you can have a resource to see if your tree possibly has it. So citrus greening is a disease that's passed through an Asian psyllid, and I'm not an expert, but I've done some research enough to know what's going on in my own backyard. There are ways you can test it to make sure it's citrus greening, which I've done. So I know for sure that this plant has it, and I'm gonna be taking it out today. So if you take a look, you can see it was a cold winter, but so I did have some damage from frost, but this tree should be able to handle it. It's been through several winters that were like the one we just had. So what's going on here, the decline in this tree is not from that. It's from the citrus greening. So a little backstory, I came home about 2 years ago, and I found the tree covered in these psyllids. And if you've never seen them before, they're very unique insects. They are where most insects kind of sit on their rear and their head is up. An Asian psyllid sits with its head down, its rear up in the air. So you can identify it pretty quickly, and it leaves a white residue wherever it's feeding. And that's also pretty obvious. That's not what we're looking at there though. So anyway, well, if you do come back here on the leaves, you can see, you know, this is a leaf that could be, you wouldn't necessarily look at that and say it's being caused by citrus greening, the way it looks. But if you look at these, you can see that looks like a leaf that would be a sign of citrus greening, where the change in color, the mottle, I guess they would call it, is not uniform on both sides of the center of the leaf. So it's different on that side than it's on that side. When you have nutrient deficiencies, it's a more uniform issue. So this you can see on all these leaves, it's all just sort of random. And that was the first sign that this had an issue. This type of thing can happen from nutrient deficiencies. You might just need to fertilize it. Maybe it's in the wrong part of the yard. Maybe it's not getting enough sun. There's a lot of things that can cause this, but that is a sign of citrus greening. And also, we noticed in the last batch of fruit that we had last year that about half of the fruit had a very salty flavor. So some of them were amazing, tasted like a lime. Others were a little bit salty, and that's also a sign of a fruit that's been affected by citrus greening. So if you want to just come around this way, you can see some other signs. This is dieback. So it's happening across, and I've taken other branches off that were having this issue. I was trying to keep it as long as I could. But you can see this is, the branch is just dying back. It's happening here on a large branch where the leaves are just wilting and yellowing, and this whole thing's gonna die. And this is progressively getting worse and worse, which is what's leading me to take it out. One other thing I wanted to point out is I don't know if this is from citrus greening. I'm guessing it probably is. But if you look here, you can see it's sappy and sticky and gooey, and it's happening randomly at a branch where, you know, I cut this off this year, but this issue began happening right at the joint of the branch, and there's some funky stuff going on here too. I don't know if it's, again, part of the citrus greening issue, but it's definitely happening. So if you have questions, oh look, there's a little lime here. Anyway, let's come around back in the shade. But if you have questions about whether your tree has citrus greening, there are a few things you can do. There's a field test, which I did with my kids. It's an interesting test. You can take a few leaves, and you get a iodine tincture and mix it with water, and the ratios are online. You can find them, but it's really simple. You just cut the leaves lengthwise, and you put them in the iodine tincture and water mixture for a couple minutes, and then when you take them out, where the cut is, if it's black, then that is sign that it has citrus greening, something to do with the starches. If it's light brown or not black, then it probably isn't citrus greening. Ultimately, we did the test on my trees. It was black, so I was pretty confident that we had a problem. And then ultimately, I took some leaf samples and I sent them to UF. There's a site out on the Panhandle in Florida that will test the leaves just to be sure, and it did come back positive. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's Huon Blanc or something. It's an Asian, officially Huon Blanc or something, but we just call it citrus greening. And these are some of the signs. You can see how it's degraded. The fruit was off last year. I hate to let it go, but ultimately there's no way to do anything to save a tree that has this disease. The psyllid injects a bacteria. So as soon as they start to feed on the tree, the bacteria is injected into the tree, and then it becomes, it just spreads throughout the whole tree, and there's nothing you can do once it has it. Now, the last thing I'll say is if you find a citrus psyllid on your citrus tree, it does not mean that it's going to pass this bacteria into the tree. They don't all carry it. So definitely, if you see citrus psyllids, spray, kill them. I use malathion. You can use, you probably want to use a pretty heavy duty insecticide if you see it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your tree has citrus greening, has the greening. In my case it did, but don't worry about it. You have to, if you see the psyllids, just hang on to the tree and make sure that there's an issue. And also, you may not ever see the citrus psyllid. I happen to see it, or the Asian psyllid. I happen to see it. You might not, and it might still be it might still have it. In fact, you may have purchased a tree that has it from the nursery, which is something I've been seeing around. A lot of these citrus trees that they sell are already infected. So citrus is a tricky thing to have in Florida these days. I don't plan on replacing it because of this problem, but hopefully this is helpful, and I hope you have better luck with your citrus than I did.